Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, the show that is part of the Simply Luxurious Life online destination. Visit the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, to find the show notes for each podcast episode, as well as much more weekly content to elevate your everyday and deepen your contentment. From recipes, motivational posts, videos of the cooking show series, style and decor inspiration, French and British inspired content, and the reader's favorite regular weekly post, This and That, which goes live on the blog every Friday. Now to today's episode. Welcome to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. I'm your host, Shannon Ables. And whether you're listening on your commute, exercising, working in the garden, or sitting down with a hot cup of tea or a café au lait, thank you for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to the 291st episode of the Simple Sophisticate. How are you doing? I hope you are hanging in there. I hope autumn, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, is restorative and beautiful and a little bit calmer in its seasonality. And if you're in spring, I hope you're reveling in this bursting of new blooms and beauty and growth. I've been following a new follow on Instagram, interior designer from Australia, Jenny Rose Inez, and the beautiful peonies that she's shared and various other flowers that come in spring have just delighted me. So if you want to get some decor and garden inspiration as far as florals, I highly encourage you to check her out. I devoured her decor book that just arrived this week, as I shared on the This and That last Friday. And if you want to check it out, be sure to check out the This and That on the blog. It was lovely. If you love British decor, you're going to love that book. Anyway, that was a complete random tangent, but I do sincerely hope you are doing well. Norman and Oscar and I just got in from the garden. We were out putzing around and giving fish fertilizer and food to the plants, some new plants that I added last month, and the roses, and getting everybody kind of settled in for winter as it's coming up. And the neighbor kids came over and helped me water and said hi to their parents, and it was just a lovely little moment. And I'm excited to talk about today's episode because I'm tailoring it to what maybe we're all kind of going through and trying to provide some help, some ideas, some things that are working for me and for others. And based on what I've been hearing from readers and comments and in emails about all that's going on. So what are we talking about? So today is a post about sharing 6 ways to dance with life and have an amazing experience. I'm going to break down 6 different scenarios that may have happened, or maybe they are happening, and how to best address them so that we can strive forward through them and not have to continually relive them, experience them, be dragged down by them. And I'll walk through each of those with you. But before I get to that, this week's Petite Plaisir is a wonderful drama series that I have been enjoying the past handful of weeks, and as evidenced by some comments already this weekend in the Saturday Ponderings post, which goes live on the blog every month, a handful of readers, and I would say probably not a handful, many readers have said they've enjoyed this series immensely. So I wanted to bring it to your attention because I think you too might want to dive in. So I'll share with you what that is as we get to the end of the episode. But let's get into today's topic, 6 ways to dance with life and have an amazing experience. I want to begin with a quote from Eckhart Tolle from his book, A New Earth. Your inner purpose is to awaken, end quote. To observe the seamless fluidity of a dancing pair with years of professional dancing experience float just across the floor, no matter what type of dance is being asked of them, is to observe a deep awareness and skill of their craft. Foxtrot? No problem. Viennese waltz? Got it. Tango? Oh my, yes, I can do that. Swing? Oh, yep, we got it. So no matter what's asked of them, they know, they've trained, they've developed those skills and honed them. In 2017, in episode 143 of this show, the skill of self-awareness was explored in depth. And just for a quick refresher as to what self-awareness is, it is to be able to observe ourselves, accept and recognize what we discover, and be honest about how we feel, why we act certain ways in particular situations, and the change we may need to take. It is being able to pay attention and be honest about our strengths, weaknesses, thoughts, beliefs, motivations, and emotions. When we are fully aware, we gain the instructions of how to live well, even though we do not know what the next minute will reveal, the next week, month, year, and so on will reveal. When we become self-aware, we are awake and capable of noticing when we need to grow and in what way will help us navigate through whatever life may present. I chose today's topic because no matter where you find yourself in the mix of stress, loss, pain, and confusion regarding our current situation, many readers have shared with me that they are presented with new situations of questions, confusion, doubt, fill in the blank of an unwanted and somewhat or significantly new emotion from time to time. So not all the time maybe, but from time to time. Even if it on the surface looks as though everything's going well, you still have your job, everyone has health in your household, there's still moments where you feel something that you've maybe never felt before or in a way you've never felt it. And it's probably or likely a feeling that you've never felt before pre-pandemic, because there's a deeper awareness of more uncertainty that was always maybe there, but we didn't fully acknowledge or see it or understand it as we do now. So I want to give you another quote from the same book, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Quote, "Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you are having at the moment." Borrowing Tolle's advice from this quote, seize these unanticipated and initially unwanted moments and feelings and let them be your guide to deeper awareness and an improved everyday life. Assuage any grief, quandary, angst by reassuring yourself that you have been presented with this moment for a reason. Don't toss it. Don't avoid it. Explore it. Today, I would like to take a look at 6 unwanted examples that may be happening in your life right now and how to step forward and do the latter, explore it, in order to improve the quality of your life moving forward and through our current situation. First scenario, you wake up in the middle of the night or early in the morning and your mind is reeling, doubt is swirling, fear is temporarily winning. What's the course of action? As a matter of fact, take a pre-action prior to going to bed if this is something that's happening to you regularly, or whenever you feel most confident, and do this. Write yourself a note, whether it's in a safe spot in your journal that you can always easily access, or just simply on a notepad and a piece of paper and put it on your nightstand. And remind yourself of the truth of how capable you are. Words of truth and strength about you that will assuage any doubt that pops up, and you know what those doubts are because they happen frequently if this is happening to you. Write about them, address them, place that note by your bed, and now we've woken up, we have the note next to the bed. First, take a drink of water. Hydrate. This will help wake your mind up just enough so that you begin to slowly take control of it. And because that's what's happening right now. You aren't fully awake enough for your brain to say, oh, she's awake now, he's awake now, they're awake now. This is not my field, this is their field. No. It takes time for you to grasp 100% your faculties. So take that water, start to regain that awareness, that awakeness, I guess you could say, that consciousness, and read your pre-written note. Read it again. Journal if you need to. What is causing your worry? What are you fearful about? Don't necessarily answer anything. Save the answering and the analysis for a time during the day when you are fully awake so that you can be a good judge of whether or not what you wrote, what those worries were, if they're valid, as well as to accurately determine if what you are worried about is within your control. Hint, If it's not in your control, let it go. And I've provided a link to some articles and posts about just that. Then turn the lights back off, count your breath in a steady rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Continue doing the counting. Let yourself fall back to sleep. And whatever you do, don't turn on technology. This is something that has worked for me. This is something that everyone's going to do it a little differently. Whenever you have moments where your mind reels, maybe it's not early in the morning or in the middle of the night. Maybe you sleep just fine soundly. That's great. Maybe it's at night when you're trying to go to bed. If that's the case, then flip this. Write the note at a time when you're most confident. Maybe it's early in the morning you're most confident. Write that note then. Put it by your bedside so you read it before you go to bed. And that will help you go to sleep. Again, tailor what will work best for you. But make sure you're talking to yourself in a manner that acknowledges this is when I'm rational and I know for sure this is true about me versus I recognize this is when I'm not rational. And so therefore I need to gain control of that situation of my mind. And this is how I can do that. That's number one. Number two, you are exhausted from work stress and trying to balance all that you think you have to do. I've recently received an email about this from a reader who's a teacher and teaches AP. And I am not an expert, so I can only speak from my own experience, and that's what I'm going to do here. Martyrs die. On the other hand, workers with awareness of the larger picture of why they work live and live well. Those same workers, while putting and acknowledging that work is important, they don't make work the top of the heap priority. I have worked with both types of people in the handful of districts I have had the opportunity to work in for my 19 years of teaching. Martyrs tend to be different people in the classroom than they are away from their students or staff, if they are administrators, for example. People who live to live well are the same in the moment of teaching as they are in their everyday life. People who live well are more content, more enjoyable to be around, and know how to put work in its place and do so with clarity and a love for not only their own life, but for the people who look up to them. And since we're talking about teachers and administrators here, that would be your students. That would be your staff. That would be the community. Now, some may scoff at this, and that's fine. This has just been my experience. And when I say martyrs die, it just means you're not living. Because I've made that mistake. I've overwhelmed myself at times to try to prove myself for fear of this, that, or the other. And those fears may have been valid on the exterior, but they weren't worth my good health. In fact, this pandemic is awakening me to some things that I'm finally fully grasping. Saying, whoa, this is better, or this could be better, and this is how we can do it, because we're seeing it happen, or we're seeing that this isn't working, and that's why this does work, whatever it might be. So here's the course of action. You're feeling extremely exhausted with all the stress that you have, but you don't see how or where you can let anything go. Course of action. Be honest with yourself. What are you aching for? So you're exhausted, you're stressed out. What is it that if you could only do this, if you could only feel this, if you could only have this, it would make it better? Nobody needs to know what your honest answer is but you. But be honest with yourself. Do you crave, at the most fundamental, more sleep? Do you crave a social life? Do you crave being more comfortable in your body, but do not have the time to exercise consistently, nor prepare and enjoy healthy, satiating meals? Write this down somewhere for yourself. This is when your life begins to change for the better. This is what we call self-awareness. Whether when given the opportunity or simply by taking it, try out living the way you want to live, the schedule you like to have all the time, even if it is only temporary right now. Stick to it long enough to experience the potential benefits. 1 month or a quarter, so 3 months. Don't ask for approval from anyone else as to whether what you crave is valid. Honor your own feelings and give the new temporary schedule a try. You will come back with some answers. Maybe not all of the answers, and maybe not the answers you would expect, but enough if you are being honest with yourself. And you'll know that whether what you thought you needed was actually indeed what was lacking. Upon choosing to make permanent changes to your schedule, if the change involves others or requires others to be involved, communicate clearly and refrain from complaining. While it is okay to vent to a friend or a partner or your journal, doing so is a means to release stress, eradicating faulty thinking if it exists due to past grievances being triggered, and to ensure you move forward with a rational mind. Sometimes what we are venting about has more to do with built-up stress from a variety of sectors in our lives, and not just one thing or the one thing we are cursing at the moment. Let me end talking about this particular scenario by saying, be honest with yourself. If you are overwhelmed and exhausted, how could you have prevented the situation if at all possible? Could you have raised your voice when decisions are being made? Could you have made the smarter decision, not the easier decision? Be honest, and improvement can be made. So that's number 2. Number 3, the scenario is that you have tensions in a relationship, be it personal or professional. So the course of action. Answer this question for yourself, not for the other people in the relationship that is involved with this state of tension, just for yourself. What behaviors and feelings are unwanted or undesired, but seem to be a default or at the very least unhelpful? Answer that for yourself. Is it when you quickly slip to anger, or you lose your courage to speak, or you don't know what to say to calm the situation down, or you don't have the strength to walk away, or you don't have the strength to step forward? And those are just a handful of many different examples. But use your answers as a guide to what skills you need to explore and better understand, and then apply in your life. Since you don't know how to do those things, seek out an expert, i.e. a counselor, or a book from a respected source on the subject. In my second book, I list a bunch of skills that are worth attaining to live a contented life. And I've referenced a handful of books on those topics in the book. And a lot of those topics have come up in this podcast, so please go through the archives or simply search them on the blog. But starting with a book, starting with an expert on a particular topic might lead you to gain some clarity and understand if it indeed is that skill that you need to improve upon. And if so, maybe that's when you say, okay, I'm going to seek out a counselor. I know it's been beneficial for me to do this as I've noticed my own weaknesses. So that's number 3. Number 4, financial stress not related to job loss. As I don't feel that I am an expert in the latter of this particular scenario, I want to keep focused on what I do feel confident speaking about. I feel for so many of those people who have, because of the situation that we're in, having been in that situation the last recession, with regards to being on the brink of nearly losing the job, I don't feel confident to give advice on that particular situation. But if you still have your job or a job, and there's financial stress around that, here is your course of action. Turn off the advertisements. Stop or significantly reduce your scrolling on social media and start living in the present with the world, the real world, not the virtual world that surrounds you. If the influences for buying more or keeping up are not coming unconsciously from the media, and I know you might be saying, if they are unconscious, how will you know where they are coming from? But take this moment to take a closer examination of what you feel you need and where that idea is being presented or shown. Look to your social circle, chosen or not, personal or work, and start to tailor who you spend your time with. And if you can't eradicate entirely unhelpful influences, reduce or limit your time with them. I guess overarchingly what I'm trying to say is we get into patterns of thinking, oh, I need this. I need to live this way. I need to have this in my life. And we think certain things that are actually needs are actually more wants. And if our stress is caused by finances, then we might be able to find some solutions that won't cause that much pain and will actually make it much more peaceful and tranquil in our everyday lives, because we realize, oh, I was being influenced by this source, that source, the other source. And that could be a variety of things, people, media, of all different types of media, neighbors. There's a lot of different influences. So just something to think about if money is a worry and you still do have income coming in, but just a small little thought to think about. That was 4. Number 5 is you're stressed out by the state of the world. The course of action. Choose to educate yourself on topics that are grabbing your attention. Those topics that are causing you angst, worry, fear. Start to educate yourself more about them. Take the reins. Be on the offensive as far as, I'm going to seek this information out. I'm not just going to be slam blasted with it when I look at the newspaper or turn on the news. I want to have the information prior to being told what I should potentially think. Choose to look to experts credible in the field you are exploring that you may not have looked to before to deepen your clarity on an issue before you jump to conclusions. However, do not overwhelm your mind. Seek out bits of information and then go about your life, adjusting your choices, actions in which you do have control that will make a difference, no matter how seemingly small. The words you choose, letting go of assumptions and fixations, keeping an open mind and refraining from groupthink, and rather practicing critical thinking regularly so that eventually it becomes your default. So again, figuring out how and what's stressing you out when it comes to the state of the world, taking the initiative to learn more, staying up to date in small amounts, and then going about your life, making choices in small steps that could make and will make and do make a big difference. That's number 5. Number 6, last but not least, scenario is you have a feeling of agitation or lack of purpose or direction. Course of action. Find something, no matter how seemingly small, which allows you to see an immediate finished, improved, or completed outcome. The act of productivity need not be anything to do with your job or career, but simply needs to be something in which you can see a finished outcome. For me, my garden has provided many moments of productivity, weeding, pruning, deadheading. As soon as I tend to it, as soon as I clip, I see results. It sounds silly, but as Sue Stewart-Smith shares in The Well-Gardened Mind, a new book that was released this past spring, quote, 2 essential sources of grounding and balance are proximity to nature and fulfilling work. Now she's referring to the lack of nourishment to the psyche, which was prompted by the industrialization in the 19th and early 20th century. But she's speaking about it because it's true not just then, but in all cases, in us being so pulled away from this natural world with regards to technology and our reliance on it. So think about for a moment, what makes you feel productive? What is it that when you do it at the end of the day or after you're complete, you're like, oh, and there's a sense of peace about you. And you go to bed with a more calm and clarity and reduced worry. I often will think as well with regards to exercise. Exercise comes into play here. When you complete a run, complete a class, a yoga class or a Pilates class or spinning, whatever it might be, you've done something that was not easy, that you know is beneficial, and you've seen it done, and you feel it done. Your body is tired. Sweat is dripping. This plays a role in that sense of purpose and finishing something and seeing it done. I know I sleep better every day that I actually work out significantly. So something to keep in mind. I know just recently a few nights when I didn't and I woke up in the middle of the night, those are both nights that were preceded by days I didn't take long walks, but rather just short little strolls. But that day that I worked on my compost last week, holy moly, spent 2.5 hours shoveling, dumping, raking, placing 4 square yards of compost, and I slept like a baby that night. I felt like I had accomplished something, but I also was physically fatigued. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. So each of these 6 scenarios, they're challenges, and they offer us an opportunity to course correct, to grow, to evolve, as Eckhart Tolle expresses in the quote we just talked about earlier. It has been my experience that if I choose to not acknowledge that something within me needs to change, to communicate better, to ground myself in self-confidence, to be brave, the same stress, the same worry, the same event, perhaps in a different form, keeps rearing its head. The pandemic is presenting each of us with unique opportunity to evolve forward and live a better life, not only for ourselves, but for our world. Choose to find the growth opportunity that exists inside of you, and your life will change for the better. So I hope one, maybe more than one of these scenarios, if it's something you're experiencing, I hope you feel like maybe I'll try this and this might help. All of these, in some form or fashion, have been things I have felt. And as I said, I've received emails or read comments from readers about each of these things as well. So please do share in the comments if you have additional ideas of how, if you've gone through any of these things and find yourself striving through them successfully or better than you have in the past, please do share in the comments as we can all help each other out here in this time. Now we have a Petite plaisir to get to. That is a lovely pastime to enjoy. I've been enjoying this particular series in the evenings, every couple of nights each week. And anyway, I'll be right back to talk about this week's Petite plaisir. This week's Petite plaisir is a Danish drama series that premiered in 2010 and ran for 3 seasons. It is slowly coming to the awareness of Americans, but those in Europe know about it and have been talking and watching it for quite some time. And it is receiving great acclaim. Now, I like to describe it. Oh, what's the name of it? The name of the show is called Borgen. It's spelled Borgen, and I completely mispronounced it. So I'm going to share with you quickly how to pronounce it. It is named after the castle that, because Borg means castle, a nickname for the Christian Borg Palace, which is the location, the edifices of the Denmark's 3 powers of government, their parliament, their prime minister's office, and the Supreme Court. Here is how to properly pronounce it from BBC News.
The real Borgen, Christiansborg Palace, home of the Danish Parliament. At its peak, half of Denmark watched a Joe Coburn lookalike fictional prime minister called Birgitte Nyborg as she grappled with family life, international crises, and a fractious coalition.
Solidarisk Samling, Miljøpartiet, Arbejderpartiet og os.
But only us true fans really know how to say it.
Borgen.
Born.
Borgen.
Yeah, you have to try like you have a hot potato in your throat. That's what they say, and then like you're hiccuping a bit.
So as you can see, it's a short, snappy title, and as they mentioned there, the star of the show is Birgitte Nyborg, who plays the prime minister throughout the 3 seasons, and she is an unlikely candidate for prime minister in the pilot episode of this series. But as we see her evolve, we see the coalitions starting to form and to evolve and to shift and to move. And it's a wonderful observation of how in a parliament coalitions can work, cooperation can work and be frustrating, but still you navigate through them rather than having, as the UK and the United States have, a 2-party system. Now, many people are trying to figure out, okay, what's this show like in the States? What's it like? And I like to describe it as a show right down the middle between The West Wing and House of Cards. It's not as dark and morbid as House of Cards, and it's not as sweet and airy as The West Wing. I love The West Wing, by the way, so please don't think I don't love The West Wing. I love it. But it's right down the middle. And it presents a lot of wonderful issues that maybe are airbrushed, especially regarding women in careers, especially government roles. Some people have said, oh, they don't like the syrupy, sweet, happy romance of the prime minister and her husband. bring it on. I loved it. It was so nice to see a strong man who was secure in his... Now, I've only watched part of season 1, so don't spoil it for me. Maybe something else changes. But so far in season 1, it's a wonderful relationship that's real, that provides hope, and a model that two strong, secure in their career individuals can be supportive and actually strengthen each other. I appreciated that. There were so many other things I appreciated in this series. There are 3 seasons. They're all available on Netflix now. And as I mentioned, I'm making my way through season 1. But I highly recommend you checking it out. If you want to step away from the drama of the political world that we are in, but you still want to learn something about politics, you still want to get behind the scenes a little bit of politics, this is the show for you. So the show is Borgen. And again, my apologies to my Danish listeners. My Danish is not even close to acceptable. But this show is fantastic. Be sure to check it out. I'll provide a link to the show notes and also put a trailer in the show notes. Oh, and it's subtitled, as you saw or you heard there in that short clip from the BBC. It's entirely in Danish and it's in subtitles, but I prefer it that way. It's not dubbed. It's much more enjoyable to watch. And you see some beautiful cityscapes of Copenhagen. You get to travel to Greenland and learn more about the history of some of these European countries that if you didn't know much about, you're going to get a glimpse of it through this show, through the geopolitical world. I hope you've enjoyed this week's Petite Plaisir, where each week ideas are shared to make the everyday all the more enjoyable. Tune in at the end of each episode where I'll recommend a book, a film, a show, a recipe, anything that is a simple pleasure to satiate your sophisticated taste. So just note that tonight, Sunday evening, so last night, I sat down, enjoyed another episode, and I've been enjoying doing that for a couple times every week. So the show notes are at thesimplyluxuriouslife.com/podcast291. Now, before I wrap up today, I'd like to share with you a review from a listener who gave the show 5 stars here at the end of September and wrote, "Enchanting episodes. Shannon's insightful episodes and unapologetically tasteful recommendations make every topic discussed in the show a journey through the everything chic yet realistic. Listening to the show makes me feel as if I were talking to a friend while shopping for a fabulous designer bag." Thank you very much, Junior Soda. I want to say a huge and tremendous thank you to anyone who's shared a positive review, a positive ranking, and specifically shared what they love about the show, as that will let potential new listeners discover what this show really is all about. If you too are enjoying this show, please do leave a review. It makes a wonderful difference. And your review could be shared on a future episode. Now, this is the last episode for October, but the next new episode will be November 2nd. And I want to apologize because on Instagram this past week, I said that I would be giving a promo code for or an advertiser that I'm really excited is supporting the show. But anyway, things weren't ready to go for this episode, but they will be for November. So stay tuned for November, as I'll have a special code for you for wine.com. And anyway, excited about that particular sponsor. Have a wonderful week in October. And for listeners here in the States, if you're voting, get your vote in. I did that this weekend as well. Mailed mine in. And I'll be back on November 2nd. But in the meantime, if you're a top tier subscriber, look for the second A Couple Moments with Shannon video to be shared on the blog on November 1st. And the next monthly newsletter will be delivered to subscribers. That's a free monthly newsletter that will be delivered on Friday, October 30th. Visit the show notes for all the information on newsletter subscriptions, top tier subscriptions, and everything you might be curious about to explore more of the Simply Luxurious Life and the Simple Sophisticate content. Bonne journée. Thank you for tuning in to the Simple Sophisticate podcast, where intelligent living is paired with signature style. For more ideas and inspiration throughout the week, visit the blog, thesimplyluxuriouslife.com, Or pick up my latest book, Living the Simply Luxurious Life, Making Your Everydays Extraordinary and Discovering Your Best Self, now available on Audible and wherever audiobooks are sold, as well as in paperback and ebook versions. You can also pick up my first book, Choosing the Simply Luxurious Life, A Modern Woman's Guide, which is also available in paperback, ebook, and as an audiobook as well. To stay caught up on the most recent episodes of the podcast, blog posts, the cooking show, and receive exclusive news as well as an extra dose of inspiration to jumpstart your weekend, subscribe to the Simply Luxurious Life's free weekly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox each Friday to enjoy with a hot cup of tea or cup of morning coffee. Until next Monday, I'm your host, Shannon Ables. Bonne journée!